Columbus, Ohio International Airport, 15 years ago. Here I was, I just finished my first year of teaching. I was married at the time, no longer married, but my then wife and I were there. We were going to fly to Royet, Thailand. I probably didn't say that right. Royet. Yeah, there we go. It means 101. With no intention of coming back. And I looked at our luggage cart. And on that luggage cart, there were 4 suitcases. 2 for me, 2 for her, and 2 cat carriers. The point is, on that luggage cart, that was everything that we owned. Even by minimalism standards, it really couldn't be said that we had too much. And yet, for the moment, we had everything we needed. Of course, after landing in Thailand, had to purchase some things. You have to purchase some furniture, mattresses, stuff to sleep on, bicycles to be able to get around, then upgrade to a motorcycle, upgrade to a car eventually if needed. I loved that time. I loved having what we needed, plus just a little more. I find the more things I own, the more they can stress me out. But I didn't need much then. My hobbies, I was not into board gaming at that time. What was this, 2009, 2010? The nearest to English anything was 8 hours away in Bangkok. I was learning the culture. My hobby was learning the language and, eventually, writing a book. That's right, I actually wrote a book while I was there. More about that coming. But the point is, not having a lot is nice. Life changes, things happen, and I came back to help take care of family. And as the years passed, I found myself not married anymore, making new friends in a new place, even though I'm from here, had to rebuild. And with that came a new hobby, and also an appreciation for owning some things. There must be this fine balance, right? Of different points in life, what you need changes. And sometimes having more than you need is nice. So now here I am, a board game YouTuber of a sort. Do I own too many games? Howdy and welcome back. I'm Mike, your board gaming every dude, and this is Board Games for One. Chapter 1, The Comment. Within the past year, I released a series of 3 or maybe 4 videos where I was revealing my whole board game collection, just showing everything I had, deciding should it stay, should it go. I ended up trading out probably 50-some games. In the past, I've traded along, donated, or sold another 100 or 200 at least. That means that a lot of the games that have entered my collection have left. So, for a board game YouTube channel host, I consider myself to have a medium to small size collection. So I was surprised by this comment. They stated, "I have far too many games. It's very weird to love 100 games so much you must have them." Okay. Maybe I have more than I thought. Maybe I have too many games. Maybe this is a problem. Maybe our hobby has a problem. Maybe we're hoarders. Maybe we need to let things go and just have the 10 games that we like to play. Are we greedy? Are we materialistic? What's wrong with us? Maybe there's nothing wrong with us. Whatever it is, the comment sparks, I think, a reasonable discussion that is ongoing. Do I have too many games? Do you have too many games? If so, how do we fix it? If not, how is it okay to have a house overflowing with games? Topic for all of us. We're going to circle back to my response later in the video. But right now, let's go to chapter 2. The question. Do I have too many games? I figured the best way to do that is just show you my collection. How many games are actually here? Well, how to count them. I just decided to go with boxes. I just counted boxes and books, because some games are in book form, totaling 116. So we'll say there's 116 games right here. That's a lot of games. I cannot play that many games in a day, in a week, and not even in a year. Well, maybe in a year, but then you add in new games and all that, right? You get the point. And you'll notice something else here. So if you look right there, we got empty space. Go right here. We got empty space. We got several of these with empty space, which means room for new games, more games to come in. Do I have a problem? Would I be happier and healthier if I had less games? Let's go to chapter 3, the problem. What I wanted to find was a scholarly article on the benefits and the dangers of owning things. When is too much, and when is too little. I only allot myself so much research time for these videos right now, and I used up all that time. So instead, we are going to the simplicityhabit.com. That's right. Hello, Juliana. Juliana is a wife, mama, and professional declutterer. Howdy, we're glad to have you. And she had this interesting article, 10 signs you have too much stuff and not enough space. Let's look at this just quickly for a second to evaluate for ourselves. Do we have too many games? And why on earth would that even be a problem? So she starts with the question here. Are you starting to feel overwhelmed by the amount of stuff in your space? There we go. There's the problem. That's the only problem with owning too much, right? Well, you got to take care of the things. But is it stressing you out because you don't have the space? But I would take it a step further. With board gaming in particular, it's not just the physical space that you have to put things, reducing clutter and all of that. It's also the mental space it takes, right? Because if we have games, then we're thinking, I'm not playing that game enough. Or, I really need to play that game. It's stressing us out. Or, don't worry, maybe it's not. We're going to get to that. But that's where the problem can be. If you are feeling overwhelmed, if I'm feeling overwhelmed. When I was feeling overwhelmed, I traded a lot of games on because it was taking up mental and physical space that I just couldn't account for. So then another topic here. Too much stuff or not enough storage? Because we can always just store things, right? So if we've got too many games, we can store them. Store them under the bed, in the garage, on the back of the toilet, whatever's gonna work. But when we reach that point, are we adding stress to our life? Well, it may not be fair. Could it be that people with more space available get to have more games and they don't have stress from it? Back to our own personal evaluation. How do I know if I have too much stuff? We're going to look at 10 signs and apply these directly to board games. Number 1, when you walk into your house, does it feel crowded because you have too many board games? I did feel that way when I had board games kind of scattered all over. You know, I had some on shelves in the living room. I prefer them to be in one space. That's my preference. That calms me. So right now when I walk in, does it feel crowded? No, it doesn't. Is your house so cluttered you don't know where to start? Well, if so, the problem may not be board games, right? That may be. In addition, some people feel okay with different degrees of clutter. I think the bottom line is, do you feel overwhelmed? When I start to feel overwhelmed, I get rid of games, which leads to a different problem. We're getting to that. Do you have trouble finding things you use often? Or in other words, do you have trouble finding the games that you want to play often? If so, and the other games are just in the way annoying you, maybe you have too many games. Do you have items you purchased that are still in the bag? Let's say, do you have board games that you have purchased that are still in their wrapping? Is that a problem? I've got one right there still in the wrapping because I haven't played it yet and I don't want to unwrap it until I unbox or play it. Which kind of brings up the point of buying board games in general is to play them unless you're a collector, which is a different discussion. As a collector, do you prefer them to never be opened? I want to hear your thoughts if you're a collector. That's a world that I haven't entered yet and I want to know more. But if you're not a collector and you have a bunch of games in wrapping, are they causing you stress or does it excite you? Something to look forward to. That might help determine if you have too many games. Number 5. Do you have no idea what's in your storage boxes? Do you have boxes of games and you have absolutely no idea what's in them? Does that cause you a little bit of stress or anxiety? Do you feel an obligation to play them or do something with them, but you're too overwhelmed to do anything with them? You might have too many games. Unless you're a cat and you just love boxes, but in that case, you would want it to be an empty box. So even a cat would have too many games. Are the surfaces in your home covered with stuff, i.e., games? If you cannot get a proper meal for your family because the games are taking up the counter space, maybe you have too many games. Or maybe you have too much food. That refrigerator could make an excellent storage solution. Number 7. Are clothes overflowing from your closet and drawers because there's nowhere else to put them because you put all your board games in your drawers where the clothes go. So you're going around in wrinkly clothes. In that case, you might want to consider, I think, that maybe you have too many games. Or You have too many clothes. 2 pairs of underwear, because one of them's always got to be washed. 2 pairs of socks. 1 pair of pants. And probably 2 pairs of... You know what? Let's go with 2 pairs of pants, 2 shirts. And you should be good to go. But seriously, sure, if our games are overflowing and invading necessary spaces, I could see that being too many games. And I kind of want to keep bringing this back to mental space as well. If they are crowding out our mental space in a negative way, then we might feel better if we let some go. Do you always have to clean up before anyone comes over? In other words, do you have board game little, what do we call them, chits and baubles? Or meeples? Can I legally say meeple anymore? I'm not sure where that whole thing stands. But if I go to scoop some peanuts from a jar, am I accidentally going to crunch down on some dice? Maybe I have too many board games in that case. Maybe. What about people coming over and you just feeling a little embarrassed or ashamed, like you have a problem because you have more than the average person? I don't know about that. I don't think that's a good thing to go by. But the consensus in this article seems to be if something makes you feel bad, then you might have a problem. Now, if what we're struggling with is something more like hoarding, where we are coping maybe in an unhealthy way that's to our detriment, that's not healthy for us, and that includes board games, that's a whole other issue, and that is something that I would defer to professional help, and you can get that help. We're talking about everything else. Number 9. Are you paying for storage for things you aren't using? This is interesting. Do we have several hundred games in storage we're paying money for? We're never going to use them. Well, 1 is, can you afford it? 2, are there better ways to spend the money? 3, are we a collector and that's a part of our collection? Or are we just afraid to let them go? Or do we not know how to let them go? Where do you put them? Can you resell them? You're probably not going to resell them for the value that you paid, but you'll get something. If that's your concern, maybe selling them for just a little or donating them to your library is the right solution. Only you can decide. And finally, number 10. Do you feel like you own too much stuff? Do you feel like you're balancing a game on your head, worried what might happen if it slips off because you have nowhere left to put them? And really that brings us to the core of the matter, right? It just depends on you. Whew. It's getting a little crowded there. So I've narrowed it down to basically 2 things from that article. 1, do I feel like I own too many games? No. I'm going to tell you why. 2, do I have the physical space to allow for my games? I'm fortunate, I do. I'm single, I don't have a roommate, I don't have kids here. You've met my YouTube sons, but they've got their own lives. Do I have the mental space? Most of the time. Sometimes no. How did you answer those? I always appreciate when you support my channel. There's a free way. If this is your first time here, just click the follow button and come back for more. I love having you. Also, click that like button. I have no idea if it does a thing, to be honest. It might just be a big old joke, a social experiment like Pavlovian dogs, which has to do with salivation, not whatever. Most of all, talk to me. Talk to me in the comments. I love it. Don't show up to my house. That might scare me, and I might call the police. I don't know, because I won't know you. Don't do that. Another way you can support is, I mentioned before, I wrote a book while I was in Thailand. That's right. So I'll put a link in the description below if you're interested in looking at it. I have not made the audiobook yet. That is on my list of projects. It will happen, but this channel is my priority at the moment. It's called The Ward Crucible, and the flaw is it's under my writer's name, Grayson Crew. When I update this, I'm going to change it to my name. A 60-second excerpt. Touch. Storm clouds are over us. Hailing rain and sleet across the docks. Small chips of ice bounce off the cement and into the sea. In a rush of impulse, I take Jael's hand in mine. It's the first time I've felt her skin. It's warm. I gasp for breath. My face turns red. She squeezes. I don't feel the small hail pricking my skin. I don't feel the wind gusting me toward the edge of the platform. I feel her. My doubts dissolve. Indecision sinks below the waves around us. I know exactly where I'm going. And I know exactly why. Back to board games. What is this, theater class? But for me, no, I don't have too many games. In fact, I'm expanding my collection. Why? Well, if you've been watching this channel, you've heard me talk about having a rotating library. I've been trying to keep it under 100 games. And then if a new game comes in, I try to replace another game and send that out so someone else can play that. My theory was these games should be getting played. And most of them are good games. The ones that aren't that good or that great usually still have a niche value to somebody. So I've been able to trade everything on. I might just be inexperienced, but I haven't personally run across a trash game yet. In that case, I would just recycle it. But now that I've traded so many games on, I'm running into a problem. I want to give quality B-roll to this channel. So that's like when you see my face, and then the B-roll, of course, is when you see a shot of the game or something over top of my face. So you're not looking at me, you're looking at the game. Well, initially I thought, you know what, I'll take pictures of the games before I trade them on. And the pictures are sufficient, but I'm finding y'all are a little more interested. Y'all like pictures, but a little more interested also when there's a little bit of a close-up recording of something. I can't do that when I don't have the game. Also, I tend to forget about the game when it's not in my library. So that limits the games I can cover. For example, I want to do a video on hidden gems. I've traded quite a few of them on, so I've got a small problem there. I want to do my top 100 games of all time. I actually think it sounds kind of fun to rank them all. However, some of those aren't in my collection anymore, and I won't be able to give quality B-roll. I'll have to just find a website or something where I'm able by copyright to like zoom through the website to show what it looks like. That's not quality for you. So I'm seeing there's a certain value as a YouTube channel, this is more than a YouTube channel. This is Board Games for One. This is our whole thing. It's a whole community, right? But there is a value to me having a larger library, even if I'm not able to replay them all the time, because in a sense, I'm able to share them with you. So because of that, there are a few I've traded on that I wish I didn't. But at the same time, I was stressed out because at the time I didn't have the space, mentally or physically. So I guess I made the right call. And if not, we'll just move on and live with it, right? But that's me. That's why I don't own too many games, and why I'm actually going to be increasing the collection. In fact, I'm going to be getting a 5x5 calyx to put against a wall so I can more easily categorize and see the gaps in the games that I need. For instance, how it's sorted now, I know we have not covered enough classic Euros. Specifically space Euros. I love those. Or let's go with sci-fi. I love a sci-fi Euro. On and on. But what is everyone else saying? Chapter 4, the forums. Alright, so I dug around in Board Game Geek in the forums, which I don't go too much, but I'm really seeing there's some valuable stuff in there. I tried to sort through for the more positive, beneficial things, so there was this thread, Purging Games from Your Collection. Some suggestions. This was started on August 6th, and I'll put a link for each of these in the description below, as well as that article from the Simplicity Habit. And you'll see I'm blurring out the names. There's nothing wrong is said. I don't have their permission. I don't want to put someone's name up if they haven't talked to me. I don't know the etiquette on that. So I'm just going to use letters like Sesame Street. So this one is brought to you by the letter A. Here is the layman's way to purge. I will use the analogy of my cluttered garage. If someone broke into my garage and stole everything, what will I actually miss? Valid point, sir. The stack of boxes I have not even looked into in the last 10 years? Over on that there shelf? You get the point. There's a toolbox, my lawnmower, and leaf blower. Everything else, thanks for cleaning my garage at no cost and a wasted Saturday. So, invite me over one Saturday when you're gone. I will purge your game shelf, and when you return, freedom. Stay out of my house, sir. Stay out of my house. And sadly, after I purge your game shelf and put all those contents into my garage, I will still be waiting for someone to show up and taking everything out of my garage. So that's a funny little twist at the end there. But there's a decent point. Will I actually miss the games if they're gone? If you can say no, maybe get rid of them. Let's see the next one. I liked this one, brought to you by the letter B. YMMV, what does that mean? I don't know. But if I've played a game, a good YMMV. But if I've played a game a good amount and have good memories with it, I will keep it. Most likely I'll play it at some point down the line. But if I don't, that's okay. Having these games is a bit like having souvenirs from a trip. They take me back to those good times. I do get rid of games I barely played and am not that interested in playing. I like it. I like it. it doesn't interest me, let it go. This one brought to you by the letter C. Several studies have shown that having to choose, I think that's two, having to choose from a big amount of options is taxing and stressful. Having a smaller library of games reduces choice stress. So we're talking about the space, our mental space again. I like that you hit on that letter C. Thank you very much. By the way, if you're one of these commenters and you'd prefer to actually be credited by your name, I apologize. Let me know and I can fix it next time, maybe. Again, I don't know the etiquette of the Board Game Geek forums yet. Maybe there's a disclaimer or something I'm supposed to read. I don't know. Brought to you from the letter D, and this is from a game designer. I think the, quote, stress, unquote, from having many choices certainly varies from person to person. I don't typically feel at all stressed when choosing what to play, despite having a fairly large collection. You know what that sounds like? That sounds like that is someone who knows what they like, knows what they don't like. Doesn't cause them any stress. Today I like this. I'll play this. All right. Let's go to our next forum. Did I mention there were three? There's three. The next one is hoarding versus replaying the games you love. And again, we're not talking about the serious form of hoarding that could require professional help and intervention. This one here I really liked from the letter D. I hoard. Honest. Occasional cult of the new and or bingy, irresistible fear of missing out FOMO, but mostly I hoard games I know I like. I also tend to play a few of the games often, and many of them pretty much never. I do have games I am not even expecting to play, but that I collected for the collector's reasons. All right, so this is the guy. I want to hear more from this guy, because this is a world that's a little different from me. It is only a problem if you feel bad about it, I guess. Personally, I am perfectly fine entertaining the duality of the hobby. I think that sounds healthy. But we're going to see kind of a counter to that for a different type of person here. Which one of these do you identify with and what would you add? We've got someone here who's kept track with numbers. I appreciated this one. So brought to you by the letter E. Very interesting topic. My most played games could be categorized as classics or family games, even though I enjoy medium to medium heavy games. But some new ones have earned their space on the list. So they keep games based on the play numbers, right? So more than 100 plays. Carcassonne, 349 plays to date, with or without expansions. I'm not going to read all these, but games with more than 50 plays. Ticket to Ride, Six Nimmt, That's Life, Transamerica, Lost Cities, Catan, Minkala, more than 20 plays, a whole list of other games, more than 10 plays, and then more than 5 plays. It says, from there onwards, I have a load of played games, but just a few were released post-2020. Perhaps I'm not part of the cult of the new. So the other guy was fine with being part of the cult of the new. This person doesn't seem to have any interest in that yet. They still have a lot of games. But it sounds like they're okay with it. It doesn't sound like it's affecting their daily life. Let's go to our final forum. Do you have too many games? This is from March 31st, 2019, but it just keeps getting updated. So there's some nice recent comments. This first one's funny. This is from a game designer. He says, Yes, I do have too many games. Don't tell my wife, but I keep buying more, and she is okay with it. That's a good life, sir. BGG says I have 2,109. But again, it seems he has the space and the space. All right. Brought to you by the letter. Let's jump up to L just for fun. Says, yeah, for sure. There are games that I hold on to and or have sought out and or print and played that are out of print. Although most of these are ones I'd keep regardless. I think so. I don't hold on to those solely for fear of not being able to get them again. That's a good point. If we're keeping something because we're afraid of losing it, that's not a real healthy place to be. We can stay there if you want, but you might be happier if you let that fear go. I also have kids. Thank you somebody for bringing up families and kids. How many gamers have kids? Like a lot. I also have kids, which complicates things a lot. No kidding. They complicate everything. There are a lot of games that I'd get rid of if it weren't for them. Love those kids. Either because they like them or because they have a curious habit of digging out games to play after a long time that I thought they had forgotten. Or because I hope that one day they'll enjoy them. I love this. This is a great dad. Or are you a great mom? I can't tell. Whatever. You're great. Yes, hope. I do think that the waiting for kid hope is slightly different to the waiting for potentially as yet undiscovered game group hope, because it's on a timer. If they're not digging it by the late teens, then I know there's no chance, and I will be able to ditch a lot. I'm thinking this is a dude just because of digging and ditch. I'm interested in your personal life. All right. I don't rotate the collection as a rule. What gets played, gets played. And this is interesting. So some people rotate as in not rotating like selling things and replacing, rotating plays as in this game hasn't been played in a year, so it's next on the list, and they have a rotation so that games continue to be played. That's an interesting option. That would kind of stress me out personally, so that's not a solution for me, but it is one out there. Let me know if that's one of yours, or if you've tried it, if you want to try it. All right. What gets played, I just let it happen. That timer with the kids will clear things, as I said, if there are games that I never managed or they just didn't like. And like I said, things somehow get dug out. Let's play this after a few years sometimes. All right, so sure sounds like they're in a healthy place. They don't have too many games, whether it's 2,000 or 20. Now this one was very interesting, brought by the letter H. Let's just go to H. Why would one need to justify owning a game at all? Do you justify all your possessions? It's a valid question. Now, honestly, I do. I go through this thing. If I'm not using something, it goes. Not everybody needs to do that. Obviously, I do. I have to justify having a collection, even though I host a board game channel. Help me. All right, the letter S. Do you have too many games? Yes, definitely. I own a lot of games I don't play and would like to sell, but I'm too nostalgic to sell them. Now, this is interesting. So is that healthy? Is that good? I'm not judging on it. I'm asking. I got almost all of those games in my early gaming days before I knew my tastes in game and before I met my gaming group, so I could try before I buy. I am much more careful with my purchases nowadays. Edit. I have not regretted a single one of the sales I made. Not even the one that I actually threw away. Could not even force that game upon some poor goodwill. I love that. So I guess there are some really terrible games, and in time, I'm sure I will run across them. And now I've run into like some that are, I'm like, somebody will like this for the art or that, or somebody will like this for the mechanics, but not the art. And I would recommend it as such for those categories. But I like that. No regrets. Sold them, so I guess it was better. Even though there was nostalgia, it was better to let them go. No regrets. Even if it meant throwing it away. Or recycling if you can. Now this one, I can't read the whole thing. But this is kind of fascinating. We've got a mathematician in the house, people. So this one is brought to you by the letter M again for mathematics, but it's a different M. All right? Some natural types of game collection numbers I've considered in the past and still do to some degree. So like perfect ratios. So that I like this. As far as how many games should you own based on the golden ratio. How cool is that? So 0, 1, and then if you own one game, you own one more game. If you own that, you own two games. If I understand this right, you're going by the golden ratio. 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, then 18 games, and own 13 games, and own 21. And whenever you hit the perfect ratio for you, you keep it at that, right? And you cycle them in, if I understand what they're saying right. Or by doubling. So if you buy one game and you're like, I still want more, then you get 2. And if you like those, then you go up to 4. And if you're not happy with that, then you go up to 8. If you're not happy, you go to 16 until you hit the amount that you want by this doubling principle. There's a certain naturalness. Interesting. And then it says 150 games based on Dunbar's number. I don't know what that is. Somebody who's educated, tell me, what is Dunbar's number? Enough games so that you basically have a reasonably personal relationship with them. Okay, I kind of like that. I kind of like the personal relationship with the games. Or go by a percentage of all the ranked games on BGG. That's going to blow my mind once we get into game rank. Or size limits, such as filling a 5x5. That's what I go by. Basically, size limits. I know I have this shelf space, no more. But let's look at his closing comments. There's a different number for every individual, as everyone is unique in terms of just how many games they need or want. But in general, I think it's good to at least occasionally examine what your goals are for a collection size and whether you possibly have too many games, and whether a collection size may be becoming somewhat out of hand in terms of budget, space, time, and if not, then game on and enjoy the collection. At whatever size and volume the games occupy in your space and in your mind as well. My twin. I came to those conclusions before I read this, all right? But you can have credit. You can have credit. I'm cool with that. But finances are important. We didn't even touch on that. If you're finding yourself in financial trouble because unable to meet basic bills and things like that because of board game purchases, that could be a sign of maybe a more significant thing to, again, look for professional help to help take care of that so you feel content with what you have. If you're able to afford your hobby, afford your hobby. And this just makes me laugh a little bit, a little geek drama. I love some geek drama. All right, so the original poster said, I have 14 board games, and I feel like I could stop at around 20 to 25. So they started this thread. We get a response. I love this response. This response from the letter Z. I just looked at your collection. You have more than 14 games. Oh, dude got called out. But wait. The original poster responded. That's right. It keeps going. It says, if you look at the date, that was like 2 years ago. Okay, good. So we cleared up the drama. No further responses to that I can see, but I'm down. I am down for this conversation. All right, just a couple more comments I wanted to point out. And this one is from the letter 9. 100% yes. And I keep buying more. I have a problem. I don't really think my purchasing habits are that bad per se. It's not like I'm buying games constantly or feel like I need every new game that comes out. The problem is really I'm not playing the majority of the games I purchase. I think the problem is I really only go to one game group these days, and that person has a ton of games, so I leave mine behind. I feel like until the pandemic is under control, a lot of these games will go unplayed. So we're going all the way back to 2020 with this post. Wow, I love this time traveling. I love time travel. I've been considering donating some of them to clear out the ranks. Okay, so we have someone that, very honestly acknowledged, maybe I do have too many games for me and my situation. And if that's the case, I hope you clear them out. Letter 9. I hope you have cleared them out by now. Solution 9. Let me know if you know what that reference is. Brought to you by the letter Wombat. I have a strict rule of keeping only 20 games, plus their expansion/sequels. In my collection, we always have to qualify things, right? We're very fun. We are very fun, we geeks. All right, in my collection at any time. When a new game comes, an old one is traded/sold. My collection is continually refined by this rule. See, this is what I have been doing to this point, and have found that it's not actually fitting for me. Because I have few games, I have time to play the ones I love the most. Also, some games become better with more plays, others fizzle out. My collection is ripe with games that become better and better the more I play. Hello, puberty. I highly recommend this. I do too, letter Wombat. I do too. I lied. That was the last one. Anticlimactic. But that's okay, because we are at the final chapter. Chapter 5, the response. So you remember, of course, in Chapter 1, the original comment on my YouTube video that started this whole topic that I wanted to get your thoughts on. They stated, I have far too many games. It's very weird to love 100 games so much you must have them. Okay. I thought about not responding. I'm not really here to argue, and you're allowed to have your own opinions. I'm not here to police that. I am here to keep this channel a positive place for all of us. So tell me how I did. I said, is it? I disagree. If someone wants to have a library of 100 games or more or less, isn't my business to judge as weird or not weird. Nor is it my place to judge your opinion, though. As for myself, anything I own can come or go. And I left it there. And it's true. Anything I own can come or go. A fire comes blazing through or some kind of emergency, I have a go bag. And what's leaving this house? Well, first, if there happens to be anybody in this house, I'm saving them. Other than that, I'm grabbing my bag, I'm going. Everything else can be lost. But living in survival mode like that all the time, I'm learning, isn't really how we're supposed to live. It's okay to enjoy having things when you can. And it's okay to be content with not having those when you can't. So you've heard my thoughts on it. What do you think? Do I own too many games? I love you all. I'll see you next time.